let's finish up by tweaking a couple of things in our material to change the final rendered image. So let's say that we want to change some things in our material and we want to be able to see kind of the different iterations of kind of the renders that we go through. We can render into the view as we saw, but we can also render into the picture viewer, which is kind of a separate interface. So to do that, we can go to render to picture viewer, or we can hit Shift R. That'll bring up this picture viewer window, and that'll keep a record of the renders that we have, and then we can go back, we can do comparisons between those, or we can just click between them to see the different results that we get. So let's just render up what we've got here currently. So, and it'll actually save all of these images that we create, so we don't have to do anything else. So this is where we're at. I want to create a little bit more depth on this by maybe faking kind of a rim light around this, kind of add a little bit of, to show a little bit more of the shape so it's not so flat. So let's go into the body, and I want to go into the diffusion. I'll click that on so it's actually using that. And then inside of the texture, let's click on Fresnel. Now the Fresnel is going to use a basic gradient to drive whatever channel it is here based on the angle of view. So you can see here we've got a black to white gradient. So the diffusion kind of dictates how much of this color we see. So the angle that's facing most towards us is getting this black. So it's not seeing, we're not seeing that color. And then the angle, as the angle gets to where it's facing away from us, it starts to move towards that white. And then in those white areas, that is basically a higher diffusion amount. It lets us see that blue color. And you'll notice that updates. So it's not baked onto the model. It's basically, it's set from wherever we are looking at the model from. So let's go into the Fresnel and tweak this a little bit. So you can change the position of the ends of this gradient just by clicking and dragging, and you can get a little preview of what that looks like up here. So on this black, I don't want it to be completely black. So let's dial this up into the gray. And so it's just a little bit darker. Okay, so we get something like that. And maybe we want to tweak that darkness a little bit. Okay, now let's do another render. So Shift R, and that'll add a new image here. And once this is done, we can click back and forth between that really quickly to just see the differences. So we'll let that render up with just that Fresnel added to the diffusion. And we'll see that gives us a little bit of kind of a rim light. You can really see it up at the top there and around the tentacles. It kind of adds a little bit more depth. Now this guy's a little bit too dark, so let's go in, and this time let's go into the illuminance. So here we can create kind of a self-illuminating look within the material. Let's use Fresnel for this as well. And so let's jump into the Fresnel, and in this case I want to have the front of this have a little bit more of a glow. And so on the white, let's double click on this, and I'm just going to turn that black. And then over here, this is where we can start to add the glow, but I don't want it to be gray. We actually want the color. So if you want to have kind of a blue color in there to kind of make that glow a little bit more, and then I can dial this down so it's a little bit more constrained to just kind of the front there. You can also come in, if you wanted to add a different color to the mix, we can start to bring in like a dark red, and you can see how that adds a little bit to it. Let's go ahead and render that and see what that looks like. So again, I rendered a picture viewer. So sometimes adding a little bit of color variation, it might be a little bit too much, but I just want to get a little bit more of a glow here coming in along that front, since we added the darkness contrast between the front and sort of the side. So you can see here it almost adds a little bit of a subsurface kind of a look. Now we don't have any textures on this or anything like that. We're just using simple color, so there's only so much detail that we can get, but you can see almost a little bit of that red coming in, mixing in towards the front and then coming into that outer part out there. Okay, so those are a few things that we can add, and you can add those Fresnel to anything. Reflectivity is often good to add that in. and you can use that to really even fake lighting, but to really add detail to your renders. Okay, so that's going to wrap things up for your first day in Cinema 4D. We wanted to just really quickly touch on a lot of different things. So we touched on using splines and generators, which is a big part of Cinema 4D. We touched on using some of the MoGraph tools, cloners, and effectors to create different effects. And then we jumped into working with polygon geometry and building models, and looked at some of the great sculpting tools in Cinema 4D. We actually did a little bit of animation and keyframing, and then talked about materials, rendering, and lighting. So we touched on a lot of different things, but didn't really go deep on any of those. If you're interested in any of those areas, take a look on our site. We have a lot of training. We have Introduction to Cinema 4D that will take you through a much longer process, but you'll get a lot more information and a lot more detail on all of these sections. And then we have a lot of project-based courses that will take you through the process of building, let's say, a car or a full character if you're interested in modeling. And then we have some broadcast training. So from here you can pretty much branch off wherever you want. Just look in the Cinema 4D category and you'll find a lot of different options for you. So hope you've enjoyed your first day in Cinema 4D. Good luck in the future. We'll see you next time.